going on, everyone? Today we're going to take a look at the Shimano Bantam MGL, kind of go over a few of the features, take a look at the outside, open it up, kind of see what's on the inside as well. So let's check it out. Alright, so we got the reel, of course, and some instructions, schematics. I got this from Japan actually, so everything's written in Japanese. I can't read it, but it's no big deal. We got some Bantam oil as well. That's pretty much everything that comes in the box. Looking at the reel, first impressions, it looks pretty cool. It's heavy. It's definitely a heavy reel compared to the Daiwa Steez. I mean, the Daiwa Steez, even fully spooled, feels a lot lighter than the Bantam. But that's okay. I prefer kind of a heavier reel for certain applications of my fishing. I'm going to be using this reel for frogging and probably flipping, punching, that sort of thing. So I kind of want a heavier reel, especially for flipping. When you're holding a rod, you kind of want that pivot point at the reel. If your reel's too light, your rod's a little bit tip heavy, so you don't get as smooth of a pivot as you would with a heavier reel. So but yeah, so the reel is a aluminum core body frame. One of the kind of the main unique feature on this reel is how the side plate is all solid, meaning this whole entire side doesn't come off. Unlike most other reels, like the Curado K, for example, open it up, whole side plate is removable, and also Daiwa Steez, you can unscrew that and the entire side plate comes off. So, but to get the spool out, what you do is you take this little lip here, turn that, it stops right about there. There's a little edge on this side too, you can kind of just pull it on out. So there's a bearing, braking system, just the brakes with your thumb here. It's pretty easy to adjust. If you own the Curado K, you know that the braking on here is a lot more difficult to adjust, especially at first. When this first came out, it was hard to turn this dial, and now that I've used it a bit, it's starting to loosen up. There is a screw in there as well that if it's too tight for you, you can open that up and loosen the screw, and that'll be easier to adjust. But yeah, getting back to the Bantam, there's the centrifugal braking system. Got the spool, got some holes in the spool probably to reduce weight. The spool feels really light. Don't have a scale on me, so can't tell exactly what it weighs, but it feels super smooth when you turn it. I mean, you can't feel anything, and most reels are pretty smooth these days. They make most brands make a pretty quality reel, and you can't feel a whole lot. Some of them you can, but yeah, you can't really feel hardly anything. Can't feel any of those gears. Pretty solid thumb bar. One thing that I check on my thumb bars is the side that's away from the handle. You kind of want to push that down to see if there's any rocking back and forth, if it's harder to engage that thumb bar. If you push down on the right side, kind of further away from that handle. But it's a pretty good thumb bar, yeah. And you would expect it to be running in at like $300. Let's take a look at these knob caps. See if they come off like a lot of the other Shimano reels. Yeah, that's one feature on the Shimanos that I don't like are these caps. They come out really easily with the Corrado K, I remember one of my rods that had the Corrado K on and just kind of tipped over. I think I had it leaning up against the truck or something and fell over and lost one of these caps. I ended up finding it, but yeah, they come out really easily. I think they look kind of cool, and they're not really necessary. They kind of just prevent or protect those screws in there. But yeah, that's one thing I just kind of wish that they stayed in there a little bit better, but whatever, it's no big deal. Looking at some of the other features on it, we got some drainage holes right there, and right there. Taking a look at the Corrado K, which also has drainage in those same areas. Yeah, well, let's take a look at the inside. No clicker on the spool tension knob. I don't think Shimano has a lot of reels with a clicker. It's a Corrado K. Steez does. Whatever. Personal preference doesn't make a difference to me. Let's open it up. Usually when I start taking apart a reel, I just kind of set it out in order of the direction you take stuff out. This is a tough handle nut to get off. One thing to pay attention to is a lot of the left-handed reels, you know, the righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It's the kind of the opposite on the left-handed reels, so something to bear in mind, just because of how the threads are on the lefty reels. So. Okay, there's the kind of the clicking mechanism for the drag star. There's a little kind of tooth right there, and that rubs up against these ridges here, and that's what makes the clicking noise when you turn the drag star. 13 Fishing has a similar design. I kind of hate the 13 Fishing design. The 13 Fishing design has something that looks just like that, but that tooth is not contained and it falls out a lot. It's hard to keep track of that little tooth on the 13 Fishing reels. If you don't know it's there, you could easily lose it, but this one it's contained, and so you're not as risky of losing that piece. But drag star, spacer, we got the little retaining nut here, some washers underneath there. Spring washers. Sorry guys, it's a lot harder to get these parts off when you are wearing these gloves. I like to wear the gloves just to keep all the oil and the grease off of my hands. There's another washer on top there, and bearing right there as well. I like to see a bearing on this side supporting this crankshaft. It kind of keeps it from being loose, and you get a much smoother reel on reels that have bearings right there. And then also another bearing will be at the base of the shaft, but we'll get there when we get there. Looks like we got all that stuff off. that spool off again. Looks like we just have 3 screws. Pretty easy to get inside of it. Alright, let's open up the side. There's the top of the drag stack. Came out on this side. We'll get some of this stuff out. There's that washer that goes on top. That bearing. Anti-reverse sleeve. If I can get it out. I should have my tweezers out to get a better hold on some of these smaller parts. There we go. Bearing right here underneath the spool tension cap. I'll take that off too, actually. Yep. Bearing right there. So. Alright, looking inside the top of the drag stack, we'll pull that off. Got the carbon drag washer. That's a good quality. You'll notice if when these are good or bad quality, just by kind of like how thick, how sturdy these are. Some of them are paper thin, but that's a good quality washer right there. Got the ratchet, and this is the bottom side of the drag, kind of how that works. That goes on the underside of your main gear, and when you tighten down that drag, these two compress on that main gear, so it's harder, you know, as you tighten that down, harder to slip your gears. And just those carbon, they make it a whole lot smoother drag when you got the carbon fiber washers in there. Got the yoke springs, pinion, and the yoke. It's a long, solid pinion. I can just tell by looking at this. This is going to be a strong cranker. Just the size of the gear. Also, this is a brass gear. These are both brass material, and that's also something you want in a heavy-duty, you know, cranking reel, frogs, flipping, punching, whatever. Compare that to the Steez. This is more of a finesse bait caster. Super light. I mean, it's a blast to fish with just based on how light it is, but you know, you're not going to throw this for frogs. It has an aluminum gear in there, which is a lot lighter than these brass gears, so it cuts down on weight like crazy, but those aluminums are not as powerful. I mean, you could throw it for frogs and it's not going to last. You're going to rip the gear teeth right off of that aluminum gear eventually. Hyler gears. Bearing right here underneath these posts. I can't remember what that part's called anymore. Supports the pinion. So another good thing about the reel is, if you throw this back on here, you'll notice that the pinion is supported by a bearing on this side, and then it's got another bearing, you know, right here supporting the pinion. So you don't have any of that wiggle. If you ever remove your side plate, take the spool out on a lot of reels, and you try turning the handle, the pinion is not supported by really anything other than the spool shaft. So when you take that out, this is flopping everywhere. You can actually damage your gears by doing that. But when you get that support, it's, you know, it just keeps everything in line. So when it's under a lot of load, there isn't any play in that pinion, and you know, that's money. You want that strength on your heavy duty reels. Let's go a little bit deeper. We'll take the crankshaft off. Get it off. It's on there. Oh, okay, I see. It's got a C-clip right here. These things are always a pain to get off and to get back on, for that matter. There we go. So looking on the bottom of the crankshaft, you see we have another bearing here, and there's a screw which is connecting that bearing to the crankshaft, and that's, you don't see that very often. Usually it's another one of those C-clips. It seems like that would probably keep this from being very leany. If you look at a lot of other reels that aren't really connected to that bearing, and most reels the bearing just kind of sits in there and the crankshaft plugs in and is able to spin freely. But just having that in there, it seems like it's going to, and I can just tell by wiggling, there's not a lot of play in that lean. If that was not connected, you could lean it a lot further. So that's another good feature on a heavy duty reel like this. Washer on top of the pawl, and there's the pawl right there. That's interesting. At the top of the pawl, there's some threads in there. Looks like, I don't know why they have that in there. Nothing screws into that. I wonder if they screw this cap directly into a pawl on a different reel, and that's why that pawl has that in there. None of the Shimanos I have that, but So there we go. This is as far as I'm going to break it down. I could take off this yoke post plate, and then we could get access to that bearing, but that's far enough. How many bearings does this reel have? There's 1, 2, 3 right here, 4. Is that it? Just 4? Could be some. 5, 6. Could be some in the handles too. I'm not going to open that up to check. I could check the schematics and double check, but the level wind is metal, some sort. The level wind on, or the worm gear on the Corrado is plastic. I don't think it makes a difference. I mean, I need to clean the Corrado, and I can see that there's some gunk in there, but it's still reeling smooth. It's not damaging anything. So yeah, that's everything. Probably start putting this guy back together. Just kind of wanted to take a look inside, see what it's all about. I don't really see anything I don't like about this reel. It's solid. I mean, it's probably not going to be the best caster in the world. When I get that back together, I can kind of show you why that is. But for what I'm using it for, it's going to be perfect. Yeah, that's a lot of parts. Let's get it back together. Alright, so we got it back together. Everything all in one piece, looks like. And everything still works, so we didn't break anything, so that's good. So in conclusion, what is this reel good at? It's good for heavy stuff. It's a heavy reel. Brass gears, metal pawl, metal worm gear, everything is, they didn't try to make this reel light. Frogging, punching, money. Finesse stuff, you're better with going something like a Steez, Curado, somewhere, in between jigs, stuff like that. This isn't going to be a monster caster. Just look at kind of how close this line guide is to the edge of the spool. It's not far away. Compare that to where the Steez is. That line guide is pretty far away from where the edge of the spool is. It's the same with the Corrado. Here, pull these up side by side. See if you can kind of see it. Now you have to imagine that there's line on here, so just look at the tip of the spool. On the Corrado, the line guide it's way up there. I mean, you got like probably a half an inch, but here, I mean, that line guide is right next to where your line is. So so hypothetically, if you're going to make a cast and your line is coming off the spool on the left side, and you have that line guide way over here on the right, the angle is going to be really sharp, and you're not going to get the distance out of that cast as you would with something like the Corrado K. That's going to have a steeper angle, if that makes any sense. So casting distance wise, probably not going to get a huge cast on it, but for what I'm using it for, this is going to be a solid reel. If you guys got any questions, let me know. Thanks.